Hey everyone, welcome back. Well, my life felt like it was in shambles. My trip to Asia had been kind of an utter failure. I'd had my truck stolen, everything was gone, everything in my life felt like had just fallen apart. But I was trying something new. I decided we're going to go in a new direction here, and I'm going to just follow whatever God has for me. And I didn't know what that looked like, but strangely, I felt at peace about it. And after my experience in the attic, for the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone. I felt like I had a strong ally. So Nicole and I were in Duluth, just kind of hanging out. We always used to hang out back then, and wasn't sure what I was going to do next with my life. Now, she had been planning on moving to Colorado before that. She used to live out there. She went to YWAM in Arvada, Youth with a Mission, and she was planning on getting out of Minnesota herself. And so, incidentally, I figured, I was going to head back there too. I didn't want to be in Minnesota anymore, and I'd figure out something. I was going to find a job and put the pieces of my life back together, but I had no idea what I was going to do next. So, she and I kind of put together an impromptu road trip. We figured we were going to stop at Devil's Tower on the way out west, stop in Jackson, Wyoming, and we'll see what happens. So she had actually never really done any big climbing before. She had just done her first climbing day with me at Lookout Mountain in Golden just a few months before that. So this was kind of a big deal. Devil's Tower is this big 600-foot monolith, and it was going to be kind of a big deal if she was able to climb it. So put together a few plans and took off in her Jetta, and we started heading west and headed out to Devil's Tower on a new adventure. And we had just a really great road trip. I got to Devil's Tower and we stayed the night kind of at the base in this field. Next morning, headed out to the base to figure out how to climb it. Now, this was like really late in the season. I think it was late October or November, so most of the tourists were gone. But we did run into this old guy that was kind of intrigued with our being there. And after striking up a little conversation with him, he invited us to stay at his place. He lived there kind of right on National Park land or just outside it. And after we did our climb. So she and I went ahead and did our climb. It was quite the adventure getting up the thing. Devil's Tower is like a pretty difficult like chimney climb. You're doing a lot of wide crack climbing, so it's a very difficult climb for a beginner to get to the top of this thing. But I saw Nicole had to dig deep, it would appear, and I was very proud of her once I saw her, summit the thing. So I guess seeing her pull through that kind of did something to me as well. Just seeing the determination that she had, and I guess if there had been any question about at what point in life I started to really fall in love with my friend, I think for me this was kind of a tipping point, but I didn't know it at the time. But we got to the summit and got back down to the base, and it was a great adventure. And then took up this guy Frank on his offer, met him back at his cabin. Turns out he runs a bed and breakfast / climbing service there, and he offered us dinner and allowed us to stay the night at his place with him. And after that, he offered us both jobs for the following summer. For Nicole to be the hostess for the bed and breakfast, and for me to be a climbing guide and take people up. So this was a big deal for both of us. For me, I had never worked as a climbing guide before, so this was a really exciting opportunity. So we took off and continued the road trip and had something really fun to look forward to for the next summer. Our next stop was in Jackson. I met up with my old buddy Justin, and we just kind of hung out there for a little bit, and then continued on up into Yellowstone National Park. Now, this is right at the end of the season for Yellowstone, and we actually went into Yellowstone in the dark, and this was a really weird experience. I guess I didn't know anything about like how popular of a destination Yellowstone is. I'd come to find out later, but we were on this road into the national park, and we were literally the only car, and there was like a ton of snow, and There's nobody there. I guess this was the day before the park was about to close. And we made our way all the way to Old Faithful eventually. And it was completely pitch black. Like you couldn't see anything. There's no full moon, nothing. There was no, the buildings weren't illuminated. There's nobody home. So this is a very strange experience. But, you know, I'd never been to Old Faithful. I wanted to see what a geyser looked like. So it was kind of interesting. But kind of by the starlight, we found the little tourist pavilion, and we could see these signs of people being scalded, and it was it was kind of a weird, alarming sight to behold. But I figured, you know, there's like benches and stuff, so we're probably safe. And you know, Old Faithful it started erupting, and it was actually kind of terrifying because I couldn't see it. I could sort of by the starlight see all this mist and hear all the all the geyser exploding. It was a very strange and romantic way to experience Old Faithful for the first time. After that, we continued through Wyoming and into Utah, and then wound our way back to Colorado. But had a fantastic road trip and a really great kind of bonding experience for us. And wound up back in Lakewood and hung out with my friend Chris and his new wife Julie, and we stayed at their apartment for a few days. And the pieces of my life were starting to come back together a little bit. They had found my climbing gear, thankfully. They had just gone to a different warehouse, apparently, back in Minneapolis. So I had all my climbing gear back. They had also found my pickup truck. Unfortunately, all my stuff had been stolen out of the back, but after paying a ridiculous impound fee, I was able to get it back. Unfortunately for me, Nicole was going to have to head back to Minnesota. She still had a lot of things to wrap up there before she was going to be able to move to Colorado. So I was very sad to have to see her go. I remember us going out to Perkins the night before she took off, and we were kind of trying to figure out like, okay, what are we going to do with life here? Like clearly we're going to have each other in our lives, but we weren't really sure how to make any of that work. And I think there was sort of an impromptu decision over that conversation that night that we were gonna end up spending our lives together, but just trying to figure out the details of how that was gonna work out. And still, I was still, I had no idea what I was gonna do with my life. So eventually, she had to take off, and I started the new chapter of my life where I was going to be building the big radio tower. So I found a gig in Golden working for this guy that actually built, the 800-foot radio tower. So this is an exciting gig. And on the next video, I'll talk about some stories from that. That was kind of an adventurous job. And we'll go from there. Thanks for joining me.